Hello and welcome to Steady International. I'm Yasmin Murray. In continuation of our leadership interview series, today we have a true American success story. From humble beginnings to becoming the youngest CEO of a Fortune 500 company is just one of his accomplishments. He's known as internationally as the business and social change agent. He serves on numerous civic boards, including but not limited to the National Board of Governors of American Red Cross, the Dallas Center of Performing Arts, and the Dallas Education Foundation, just to name a few. He is a recipient of the Horatio Alger Award in 2005 and the Ellis Island Medal of Honor in 2008. He's also the founder of Education is Freedom Foundation, which provides college scholarship to hardworking young students. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more to this leader. I'd rather him tell us about his career, his passion, his endeavors in his own words. It is my honor to interview and present to you Mr. James W. Keyes. Hello and welcome, Mr. Keyes. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Awesome. So before we get to the subject matter, which is a transformational leadership, tell us more about who Jim Keyes is.
Where do I start?
Oh, your bio was, I had to pick some excerpts from your bio. There's so much to what you do. I just get tired reading it. How do you do all that?
I can't say. What I can tell you is that I have been blessed with, I would characterize it as a life of adventure. Every day I wake up and there is new opportunity in front of me and potential for a brand new experience, a brand new adventure. And thankfully, it has always been that way. Sometimes the adventures are a little scary. Sometimes you face adversity. Sometimes you face crisis, turmoil, whatever. But I've found that in the darkest of clouds, in the most severe of storms, on the other side is a rainbow, and it somehow seems to work out. So as I said, I don't know if I've just been lucky, blessed, or working hard pays off, but I've been very fortunate.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your career in a nutshell. I know you've accomplished so much. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. And you have so many hobbies as well. I'm just amazed as how you can fit everything in the limited time that we have on a daily basis.
Sure, I guess I would characterize myself as sort of fortunate to have been living the American dream in so many ways. I was not a silver spoon kid. I didn't grow up in a privileged environment, going to the best of schools, etc. Grew up in a hardworking, working class family with the same issues many families have: divorces, separations, crises that happen, etc. So I was had a relatively turbulent youth, but discovered at a very early age that education really was the key to my independence, my ability to do whatever I wanted to do, and to pretty much do it on my own. So I focused on education at a very early age. In fact, my father used to say, it was a bit severe perhaps, but he'd say, study really hard. Your education is one thing they can't take away from you. Now, today that sounds a bit negative, but his spirit was sound. The more you learn, the more you can do, and that's what he, in his own way of saying it, that's what he missed when he was young. He missed that opportunity to pursue the education and dropped out of high school at an early age and ended up in a pretty challenging factory environment. So he wanted better for me, but he didn't really know how to tell me how to do it. That was his best advice.
Okay, so
he was a very driving force. I was blessed with parents who encouraged me, gave me a lot of encouragement. Didn't really know how to recommend that I pursue an education, but they knew the importance of an education and made sure I was aware of that. So I was fortunate from an early age to be able to make that sort of my hallmark.
That's important. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your career.
Sure. I wish I could say I had this master plan as a child, and I wanted to go off and be a business executive and take over a Fortune 500 company. Not at all. I wanted to be an astronaut. I grew up in the age of Gemini and Apollo. My heroes were guys like Buzz Aldrin or Charlie Duke, and I wanted to fly. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to get into aerospace. And while I didn't end up pursuing that path, I did, I think, use that desire as a motivation to study and to throw myself into my schoolwork, knowing that it would be a prerequisite to going into space one day. And it paid off in other ways. And ironically, after getting my first paycheck, I started taking flying lessons. So that was my way of satisfying the quest for space, the desire to, put the air under my wings. And I was able to do that. And I still fly today.
Yeah, you've been a pilot for 40 years. And you've single pilot your Cessna citations and other jets, and even fly helicopters and float planes, I see.
I do. It's a passion of mine. It always has been. And I've been fortunate to work my way up from single engines to twins to turboprops and then ultimately jets. And it's a rare privilege to be able to fly single pilot in a high performance jet at 41,000 feet above most of the other commercial traffic. I still today, if I'm flying cross country, pinch myself for the privilege of being able to do that. And I can tell you, it's an odd combination of art and science, if you can imagine, because you of course have the technical skills required to operate the equipment and to understand the dynamics of flight and to keep yourself and your passengers safe, of course. There's a tremendous amount of training required, but there's also an artistic side of flight.
Really?
The beauty of nature.
Yes.
Curvature of the earth that you can just barely begin to see at 40,000 feet and above. And the colors, the weather patterns is just absolutely fabulous. And it gives you such a profound appreciation of the world we live in when you're up there at altitude. So it's much more than just a technical skill. It's also, as you can see, that's why I have such a passion for flight.
And that's amazing. I can visualize the horizon, and nature is amazing. And you, like you said, you are privileged, and you've seen nature up close. It seems like that's amazing. That's really awesome. All right, let's get to the meat of this. Let's talk about, are you okay to talk about leadership? Because you've been a tremendous leader.
Well, thank you. You were able to experience that firsthand in one of my organizations. So,
yes. I was fortunate enough to work for Blockbuster. You were the CEO at that time. But tell me a little bit more about what's the most important elements of leadership.
Blockbuster is a really good example because I have always said the most important element of leadership, there's one thing above all others. And we've all read countless books on leadership and had countless hours of coaching and gurus telling us, management gurus telling us this element or that element. But I'm going to boil it down into one most important thing and then a couple of other key ingredients. But I believe that life and business are all about change. And adaptation to change is one of the hardest things for humans to do. We don't like change. We resist change. We're afraid of change. We fear it. Too often we bury our head. And in any leadership position, whether it's the leader of a family or a leader of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, you're going to have to deal with change. And the way you respond to change is essential to the success and the survival of that organization and the well-being of all of the people that are counting on you to lead. So adaptation to change, being able to see it, understand it, embrace it, deal with it, and communicate to the team how to work your way out of it or through it. As I said earlier, in the most severe of thunderstorms, there is another side. And so while you're dealing with the turbulence and the frightening, elements of a storm being tossed around the sky, on the other side often are clear skies and maybe even a rainbow.
Well said. Well
So
said.
that's one of the most important challenge of leadership, being able to embrace that change and know that there is something better on the other side. How do you get there as quickly as possible?
Absolutely. Every day we're going through, look at this, the current environment, the current climate we have with COVID, and the companies that have adapted and adjusted to that change are still thriving and flourishing, and the others have to wrap up because they don't know how to adapt or acclimate themselves with that change.
Exactly. In fact, I've been speaking a lot about the blessings of COVID, the many opportunities that have come from COVID. You think about just on the personal side, how many families have spent quality time together for the first time ever, played board games, had meals together, perhaps for the first time ever as a family. From a business perspective, how many companies responded to the call, able to quickly adapt to home delivery or takeout capabilities? How many companies have responded to what we're doing right now, improved use of technology for enhanced communication so that you can have a broadcast from your office versus what we would have had to do just 2 years ago, drive to a studio, deal with studio capabilities and lighting and equipment. Now we can do it via Zoom from the comfort of our office or our home. So technology is one of those things that has been a beneficiary of this crisis that we're in now. And the last piece I'll give you, the last example is that, and I'll talk more about this later, one of the areas that have been least influenced by technology in the last 50 or 100 years is probably education. And if you think about it, we're still teaching in front of blackboards with chalk and books the way we've taught for 100 years or more. And yet technology today is so powerful that a student can learn more history by watching YouTube videos than they can from a traditional textbook and sitting in a class, in a history class. If those tools are channeled effectively and used effectively and put in the right hands with the right instructions, combination of hands-on and digital instruction. But the power of technology and education is massive. And what COVID did, what this pandemic did for the world is, I believe it accelerated the use of technology in education by as much as 10 years. There were whole areas of the country or cities that had no Wi-Fi connectivity, and it would have taken us years and years and years to get there. And yet, because of the crisis, companies like AT&T rallied to the cause. Verizon rallied to the cause. They came in, provide Wi-Fi hotspots. They lit up areas of cities that weren't otherwise connected and enabled our students to be able to have virtual education. Now, the question is, what's the next step? How do you take it now to the next level and use technology to finish the job of not creating the digital divide, but closing the digital divide and closing the socioeconomic gap when it comes to education by using technologies in new and innovative ways? That's the power of change and the power of a crisis to be turned into an opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. My next question to you is, what would be your advice for young entrepreneur?
You know, I would tell a young entrepreneur to aim high. I have a plaque in my office that I've had for a long time. And it says, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. And so many entrepreneurs have big ideas, but they either lack the confidence, or the ability to keep aiming high, and they shortchange their opportunity and pull back. I would recommend to any entrepreneur to continue to strive for the best and the biggest of the opportunities that they can dream, and to not give up on that dream.
Yeah, and firsthand, it's not easy being an entrepreneur. You have to be persistent, and you just cannot give up. And sometimes, especially young people will just give up. They want immediate gratification, and it doesn't happen immediately.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges. There is a desire for immediate gratification. And I'll give you another angle. An entrepreneur doesn't have to be a sole proprietor. It doesn't have to be someone out, seeking to get out on their own. I was a corporate guy. I was a, very large corporation, work your way up through the ranks kind of person. But I always saw myself as an entrepreneur, even within that environment, because corporations need entrepreneurial spirit as well.
Yep.
The corporate environment will sometimes beat the entrepreneur out of you and encourage conformity and stifle creativity. That can happen in a corporate environment. But a true entrepreneur will just see that as another challenge along the way and knock down those obstacles, stay the course, be persistent, and be able to bring that entrepreneurial spirit to the corporation. And as a result, will be rewarded for it. If they're not rewarded for it, may not be the right environment for that individual. But it is, I think, the opportunity to be an entrepreneur, whether you're doing a startup company or working for a multi-billion-dollar major corporation, the fundamentals of entrepreneurship are the same, and the requirements are the same. Stay the course, be able to work hard, be patient. There's a Calvin Coolidge quote that I actually was able to get from this is actually a fun story. I was working at McDonald's, flipping burgers, trying to work my way into enough money to be able to attend college. And I saw a poster on the wall, and it was a Calvin Coolidge quote. The quote is something like this. He said, "Press on. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than successful men than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education alone will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." That was a quote by Calvin Coolidge many, many years ago. Here it was on a poster on the wall at McDonald's. And when they were ready to throw away that poster, I asked if I could keep it. I took it home, cut around the edges, put it on a board, and that poster has been in my office ever since high school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I'll take the story full circle. And you'll appreciate this because of the Blockbuster element to it. Shortly after I was fortunate enough to be inducted into the Horatio Alger organization that you referenced earlier, a distinguished member of that organization is Warren Buffett, who was one of the 10 people per year a number of years ago that was inducted into Horatio Alger. So when I was inducted, I had a nice note from Warren, and he sent a copy of his biography, a big, thick book. And I was just thrilled. Note from Warren, copy of his book, congratulating me on Horatio Alger. I started flipping through the book, and I stopped in my tracks. I was shocked. One chapter of the book, a whole chapter, was one page. The one page chapter that was important enough for a full chapter of Warren Buffett's autobiography, was the Calvin Coolidge quote.
Wow.
In the same script that I had on my poster that's been on my desk since high school. And I just thought that was such a powerful expression. And one more piece of the story, several years later, I was able to run into Warren at an event. It was actually at Bill Gates' home. Microsoft has a thing called a CEO summit that they would host from time to time. And I was fortunate to be invited, and we were at a reception at Bill Gates' house, and other CEOs were there, and here at the buffet line was Warren Buffett, of all things. And I shook his hand, and I reintroduced myself and reminded him who I was. And he didn't know, he hadn't been aware that I had joined Blockbuster. He knew about my 7-Eleven experience, but didn't know that I had joined Blockbuster. And his comments were, well, first of all, he said, "So what are you doing now?" And I explained it in a almost a defensive tone. I said, "Warren, I took on this challenge of Blockbuster. We have $1 billion of debt." Now, keep in mind, this is just the end of 2008, early 2009, just as the financial markets were collapsing. Lehman Brothers was shut down. The banks were closed. We had $1 billion of debt. We had $350 million of it due in 2009 with no way to refinance it. So even though we had big dreams for Blockbuster, big plans to go digital, thought we could compete quite effectively with Netflix, more effectively, we believed, with Netflix because of the breadth of our offering. We also had $1 billion of debt and no way to finance that transition. So I was explaining this to Warren in a little bit of a defensive tone, saying, "Yeah, I'm not sure I made the right decision, but here I am, and I'm toughing it out." And he looked at me and said, "Jim," he said, "you're in the game. Would you rather be sitting on the fence or on the bench watching someone else in the game, or would you rather be at bat?" He said, "Don't worry about it. Just get in there, dust yourself off, pick yourself up, and take another swing. You'll be fine. You've got what it takes. Just get in there and make it happen." And literally that pep talk from Warren Buffett made the difference between me deciding that I was going to leave when the going got tough at Blockbuster, and instead, if you recall, I decided to stay
Till the end, yes.
Saw it to the bitter end. I had to endure all of the arrows and attacks from everyone who had an opinion about what Blockbuster should have and could have done. But we made it through. We made it through the other side. We were able to sell the company to Dish Network. We had a successful restructuring. At the time, saved a lot of jobs, kept the stores open at the time. I think it was 19 or 20,000 jobs we were able to save by selling the company to Dish Networks. And it was the right decision, thanks to Warren Buffett and his advice. So again, it comes back to that persistence and determination are omnipotent, as Calvin Coolidge said, and as Warren Buffett embraced and was kind enough to share with me. We had that in common.
That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing. That really
Sure.
is. And like you said, that persistence, and you just can't give up. You have to have your inner voice speak up if you have any good ideas, new ideas. Sometimes younger people are more subdued and they don't think that their opinion counts, and maybe that they don't have a good idea. So to them, what would you say?
I think I would say to my younger self, if I was to be able to travel back in time and visit the young, early in his career Jim, I would say, have confidence, communicate effectively, and don't worry so much. It's all going to work out. Because we do have a tendency to, especially younger people in their career, worry so much. There's so much wringing of hands, and am I doing the right thing? And is my career going to progress fast enough? And will I make the right decisions? At the end of the day, if you're really doing your best job and you're committed to it, and you're giving it all you've got, it will work out. And in spite of the toughest of times, you'll be able to find a way through. And those tough times may turn into opportunity, personal opportunity for you. So stay the course.
Absolutely. My next question to you is kind of related. If you could begin your career over, what would you do? What would you do different?
We all learn as we go and adapt to change. I would do two things. I would probably be more sensitive to people. All corporations ultimately are about people. And we have a tendency to get in a corporation and people, human resources, their resources, their tools. And too often we forget the human side, and I am absolutely guilty. I had a coach one time say, do you know your administrative assistant's been with you a number of years? Do you know her son's name? I said, yeah, of course. It's Junior. What's his name? Do you know his birthday? And I didn't. Of course I didn't. It was one of those things. I was so busy and not sensitive enough to the fact that the people I work with are people first. They have lives, and they will be happier and more productive if I have a higher level of sensitivity to them and their lives as well. It's something that you learn, I think, sometimes too late in your career. I think it took me many, many years. But I realize today how important it is. And, I'll give you another example. When we tend to think of corporate roles, we tend to think of what's the most important job? Well, the CEO, of course. Well, what's the next most important job? Well, the chief financial officer, of course, or the chief operating officer. Maybe not. I don't know how many people think this way, but today I would put the head of human resources right up there. Because if they aren't your partner and helping you find the best talent for the right jobs to get the most performance out of that organization, doesn't matter how good your CFO is or your COO, you'll fail as a company. And so, that's probably, if I was to start over, I would say the overall awareness and sensitivity to the importance of people will ultimately make or break the success of any organization would be something that I would have been far more attentive to much earlier in my career.
I have another question for you. You talked about communication and confidence. In leadership, communication is very important. And if the communication is not there, things fall apart. What role does communication, bottom up, top down, do you think plays in an organization? Because I was reading in a magazine, they were talking about it's a $37 billion deficit when people don't communicate well with their teams. It costs them that much.
It's huge. It is absolutely huge. I think my mantra has always been, you can't over communicate. And that's both up and down in the organization, across the board. Too often, again, we get busy, we're focused, communication gets pushed to the side. And I'll give you a couple of really important elements. One is confidence in communication, being able to stand up there and be able to confidently lead the organization, particularly in a time of crisis. It's essential because people have their head down and they're thinking, woe is me, I'm going to get fired. The world's going to come to an end. And as a leader, you have to be out there giving them that reassurance that it's okay, here's the plan, follow me. There also has to be a simplicity to it, because it doesn't matter how good the plan is. If they can't understand it and embrace it, they won't follow it. They'll say, yeah, okay, fine, and they'll go in a different direction. So confidence and simplicity are essential, particularly in times of change. I'll give you a couple of examples of how I was able to, I think, use this focus on communications effectively. I learned from Sam Walton. I observed Walmart with fascination and their growth, and I discovered that Sam Walton had a secret technique, management technique. It was something they didn't teach me at Columbia Business School, or they don't teach at Harvard Business School. He recognized the importance of communication. And he recognized that in leadership, particularly in a big organization like Walmart, it's almost like, I don't know what that kid's game is, Signal, Campfire, whatever it is, where you sit around in a circle and you whisper something to the person next to you and it goes around the circle. Right. And by the time it comes back, they whisper it, the last person in the line whispers what that secret was to you, and then you tell the group and everyone laughs because it's not at all where it started. That's management, that's leadership. That happens every single day in every company across the country. Because you think about it, at 7-Eleven, at one point we had 12 layers of management between the CEO and the store. And by the time that direction gets interpreted 12 times, who knows what's going to happen at the store? So here's what Sam Walton did. Sam Walton said, I can't afford that. I can't afford that lapse in communication. We've got to be nimble. We've got to be fast on the street. So I'm going to have all of my store people come to Bentonville, Arkansas once a week. And I'm going to have a Saturday meeting and I'm going to talk to every single one of them so they hear directly from me what's important that week. And they created literally the Walmart Air Force. They had a small fleet of planes, 2-engine planes at the time, that would fly people from all over the country to Bentonville, Arkansas, of all places, to be able to have Sam be able to look those people in the eye and share with them the priorities, what was so important to satisfy the customer that week. I copied the heck out of that. 7-Eleven was way too big to do this on a weekly basis. But we also had the advantage of technology. So the concept of not video, this was just teleconferencing, was relatively new. It's hard to even imagine, this is how old I am. But we were just then introducing these teleconference machines that would allow us to connect people via many people via telephone, which was unheard of prior to that. So we partnered with AT&T and we launched a nationwide network of teleconferencing, and we're able to literally do the same thing that Sam was doing. We would hold a weekly conference call every Monday, and we'd get people from all over the country for 7-Eleven. In every little region of the country, we would have them listen in, and I was able to say, here are the 3 priorities for the week. It might be a new flavor of Coca-Cola that we were about to launch, or a new Frito-Lay product, or a new proprietary product, new food item that we were about to introduce. I'd be able to talk about it, tell them the importance of it, and say, if you do nothing else this week, focus on these 3 things. It was a miraculous thing. I'd go to the stores and I'd say, what are the priorities? What are you working on this week? And they would repeat back to me those same 3 things that were the key priorities for the week. I swear it had a massive impact on our ability to drive same-store sales and improve. We ended up with 10 consecutive quarters, 10 years, almost 40 quarters of improved same-store sales. And I attribute it to that enhanced level of communication. In fact, at Blockbuster, I took the same basic approach. We now had video conferencing. So at Blockbuster, of course, it was appropriate for Blockbuster Video. We did a video hookup with everyone in the country, and we're able to link all of the Blockbuster districts, and we would hold a once-a-week meeting. When things were really tough, it was hard to describe what was going on from a financial perspective, but at least everyone was informed and they were able to understand what we were going through at the time.
You know, it's we at Siduri International, we coach on communication, confidence, communication, confidence. And that's one of the things that we have discovered in a lot of companies, small, mid to large, that is the biggest issue. And due to lack of or less communication, people leave. You hit on it earlier. People work for people. It is people's business, especially retail. Any business is people business. In order to retain talent, communication is the key as well. That's, I believe.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's a natural emotion that people want to feel part of the team. They want to feel connected, and it's fine for them to feel connected to their local group, their local zone, their division, their district. But they also need to feel part of the whole and understand where you're going.
Family, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Next question for you. What is the latest commercial enterprise? I know so many things.
So many things. Yeah, I'm a bit guilty today of probably having too many things distracting me because I have so many different interests. I have still an interest in retail, of course. I'm fascinated by the changes in the retail landscape. And if another 7-Eleven or Blockbuster should come along, I'd probably do it in a minute because I love the challenge of a global enterprise. I also like the hands-on ability to work with an entrepreneurship. So consumer product opportunities. I've worked with a lot of companies and providing some advice and helping growing consumer product brands. I mentioned an avocation being flying, so that has led me to the aerospace industry. And I'm working now on a project with hypersonic vehicles, taking them to the next level of speed to be able to go to the edge of space and travel with hypersonic speeds that require a whole new kind of material to be able to withstand the heat and the temperatures associated with those kinds of speeds and those kinds of reentry effects. So those are the kinds of things. It's a little bit of traditional retail and good old-fashioned consumer products and some cutting-edge technology with aerospace initiatives.
Yeah, you'll be competing with Elon Musk, huh?
I wish. I wish.
What is your latest philanthropic enterprise?
Philanthropy has always been near and dear to my heart. I discovered that the joy of philanthropy is really what you get inside. It's not making money. It's not about making money. It's not about having, material things to show for it. It's, when you can see change in whether it's a student or a community that you've helped, it's an incredibly powerful feeling. In fact, I'll share one story. You mentioned Education is Freedom's foundation that I got started almost 20 years ago now. And we've done some really, really good things for students, basically just coaching students and letting them know when they're in the 6th or 7th grade, you can do anything you want. You've just got to have that persistence and determination, and education is the key. Figure it out. Just learn as much as you can and stay on course. And if you do, we'll even help you, get scholarships. I've had so many wonderful experiences of being in an airplane or sitting in a restaurant and having someone come up to me and say, are you Jim Keyes? Did you help start Education is Freedom? So, and then one young man approached me one day and said, you understand, I am the first one in my family that ever went to college, and I'd probably be in a gang today, or I don't know where I'd be, but for Education is Freedom convincing me that I could do it. And now I am a graduate student at SMU or wherever he was at the time, and I'm really excited about my career in whatever it was he was going to pursue. And you go through an experience like that and you see there really is an opportunity to change lives one person at a time. By going in and giving back and doing things in the community. So it's incredibly rewarding.
Certainly is, certainly is. That leads to my next question. You're known for being the founder of the Education is Freedom. Tell us why education is so important to you and to humanity.
Well, I'm actually working on a book. I don't know if it'll ever come out in book form. I just took one of the chapters and wrote an op-ed about the importance of technology as a big enabler for education. And I believe that education in so many ways is the antidote to everything that is a challenge with society today. It's sort of a self-help guide for humanity, if you will. Because if you think of all the problems in society, every single one, whether it's social injustice or inequality of wealth or racial divides or religious differences and fears, all of those problems with society come down to often fear and misunderstanding or lack of understanding. And education in so many ways can close those gaps, whether it's providing economic opportunity to the underprivileged by getting out of their current economic environment, or helping one religious group understand the differences, or ironically, the similarities between them and another religious group. So many religions, if you think about it, have a common core. And yet the perception is, no, we're different and you're scary. And it's all about knowledge. It all comes back to knowledge. And so how can we spread knowledge in a more effective way across the world faster than we've ever been able to do it? Well, technology in so many ways is the answer to that. It's an enabler. It can light up whole regions of the world that didn't have access to education before, or books. And we can now power places where, there are parts of Africa today where they have greater penetration of cell phones than in many developed countries. And we can use this as a portal to unlimited learning and lifelong learning if we're able to direct content and curriculum in the right ways and in an engaging way to those devices and to those individuals. So the opportunity is to change the world is virtually unlimited right now with the power of technology.
Technology, definitely. I totally agree. You touched on something, the teachers that we have for these students, like you said, inequality of pay. Don't you think that we should put them on a pedestal? Those are the ones educating our youth, our leaders of tomorrow. And of course, it becomes a political agenda. But it's just unfair that they're not treated with such respect as they should be treated with.
No, it's true. Teacher pay, there's so many challenges with the way we teach and the way we learn. But if you think about it, it's a carryover from so many years of doing things the way we always did. When public schools are funded by real estate dollars, too often the real estate dollars in the poorer areas are not as strong, and so the tax rolls are not as great, and the schools don't have the resources, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the way we've done things for so many years that it's hard. Again, remember I talked about change? It is so hard for people to wrap their heads around change. That's why I'm excited about technology, because in many ways, technology will force that change. It will provide those same teachers with better tools. It will provide them with more of an ability to bring content to students. It will hopefully provide them with a higher degree of respect and potentially remuneration for the ability to teach in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we're on the precipice of a huge change in not only the way we teach, but the way we learn. Mm-hmm. And the impact will be across the board, from teachers' salaries to the kinds of people who want to go into the teaching profession, to the way students learn. And are they going to learn in the old-fashioned way and be graded in the old-fashioned way? Or will they be able to self-learn, not completely outside of the school environment, but will they be able to get credits for, instead of playing a video game, learning history from the History Channel or YouTube? and being able to take a test at the end of that video and get course credits for it, because they actually were able to learn and absorb in a way that they maybe more effectively than from their history book. These are all things that are possible with technology that we're now just on the edge of being able to introduce to the world, and to, I think, dramatically change the way people teach and learn. And as I said, I hope the end goal of all of this is that education becomes that go-to self-help guide for humanity, because it truly is the solution to so many of our problems in the world today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Jim, if somebody wants to get involved in your foundation or your initiatives, how do they get a hold of you, or what do they need to do if they want to donate?
Well, there are two places that they could go. One is that I've been especially focused on right now, the day in, day out, boots on the ground counseling of young people to be able to help them understand the importance of opportunity, is the Education is Freedom Foundation that I was able to get started almost 20 years ago. That is available online at educationisfreedom.org, and they are always looking for volunteers, contributions, etc. That would be a terrific thing. The second initiative that I'm working on is something called Project Dream Big. It is sponsored by the Dallas Education Foundation. The Dallas Education Foundation is a link through Dallas ISD. On their website, you can find the Dallas Education Foundation. And Project Dream Big is trying to raise literally $200 million to create the virtual learning system of the future. So in other words, instead of taking all of the existing software that's out there, that in many cases just takes the old-fashioned teacher in front of a blackboard, puts them on video, and makes it available to the students. Instead, what we're trying to do is bring in AR, VR, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology for securing transcripts and providing micro scholarships so we can engage children in their studies in a way similar to what they do with video games. They level up in video games. They get incentives all along the way. Well, why not give them a 20-cent scholarship for completing a module, and it goes into a blockchain secured bank account. And then that bank account, by the time they're a sophomore in high school, they could have half of their college degree paid for with their scholarship bank account, the accumulation of micro scholar dollars in that account.
That's awesome.
These are all things that are possible through technology. So the Dallas Education Foundation is working on Project Dream Big. Any support that anyone wanted to give on their website would be very grateful for.
And we'll provide the link on this video, so if anybody wants to donate or get involved, they'll be able to do so. Jim, thank you so much today for being here, and I know it's been a long time coming, and sharing your wisdom with us. It's quite an honor. I really appreciate it. Thank you again, and hope to see you soon.
Well, thank you very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity. As you can see, we have so many things to accomplish, and would love to have help. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share the big ideas.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.